Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of, no, it's the Four Amigos. And today Ed's going to be helping us better understand the role of advisors. And we're going to talk a little bit about why many times small businesses are reluctant to bring someone in when frequently they can't afford to hire the kind of talent that they can get by getting an outside advisor. So Ed, help us understand a little bit about our value or the value of outside advisors and your experience in having, worked inside of companies as an advisor for many years now.
Well, we've had quite a few shows, and every topic we talk about as the three amigos, we talk about how valuable a business advisor is. So I wish everybody had one, but they don't. And it kind of perplexes me as to why. Why don't some family businesses have them? Quite frankly, there's quite a few family businesses. I don't have any statistics on that, but it could be 50% don't use outside advisors, and I don't quite understand why. So I thought I'd put this program together, try to explore some of the advantages and maybe some of the reasons why some families are in their business are reluctant to engage a outside advisor to help them move through their company and make it more profitable. We're talking about, there's a lot of outside advisors. It's not just consultants. There's coaches. There's quite a few people focus on coaching. We have, CFO type of work, CEO type of work. There's so-called family advisors, and they're pretty big. I mean, and they're, like Vistage is like an organization that helps corporations, small family businesses progress and become more profitable. So there's a lot of avenues out there for this outside help. And we've been talking about this, but again, unfortunately, a lot of family businesses don't have one. Public companies do, and we always make a distinction between private companies and public companies. When I worked with public companies, big companies, we worked with Bain, we worked with McKinsey, we worked with all kinds of advisors. We had advisors coming in at least once a year on a certain part of our company to try to make it more profitable and run more effectively. So outside companies use it quite a bit. Family businesses, not so much. And today we're going to talk a little bit maybe why they're not using it. Good advisors are forward thinking and they focus on adding value. That's one of the things that could be beneficial to a family run operation. It has to be more of a long-term type of relationship rather than short-term. And when you say consultants, a lot of people automatically think, oh, I brought this consultant in for a project to do this. And as Ray likes to say, when they do these projects, after they're done, they put them on the shelf and they never refer to them again. And maybe that's one of the reasons why people aren't too excited about getting consultants, because they don't see the benefit. But to have really benefit from an outside advisor, you really has to be more of a long-term relationship rather than a special project, because they really need to understand the business, the management, the customers and employees to be a really good advisor and add a lot of value. Here's the thing I don't understand, and I'm going to pose this question to you guys. In my opinion, there is no risk. You bring somebody in, and if it doesn't work, you find somebody else. Where's the risk to this thing?
The risk is not in the monetary side of things. It's in the issues really having to do with embarrassing someone or looking incompetent, or so many times advisors are brought in to pick one side of a battle that's already going on between the family members. So it's really the intangibles that I think is the scary part of hiring an advisor, and not necessarily that it would cost too much, but there are those who would throw that into the mix. And I'm thinking that Many times they'll say, oh, well, I'm going to be paying X $100 an hour or whatever it might be for something we can do ourselves. And the interesting part is that sometimes that's what you get. And you get something that somebody else could have done. But then the question is, but why isn't it done already then? And of course, the answer is, sometimes you have to bring in people from the outside who have certain expertise that you don't have people who actually get them done because they've got too much to do. And so it's a source of high level labor too. So it shouldn't be, but I think that it's more the emotional side of things, why people, they feel inadequate when somebody comes in and tells them what they quote already know.
Well, I think the other things I was going to say, if I could add,
go right ahead, please.
As we've talked, when you're dealing with a small business, you're probably dealing with somebody who's already got a control, independent mindset, and feels that he went into business because he wanted to go it on his own, and so there's a lot of ego involved in my experience. And as a consequence, it's people who can set their ego aside and bring in other people who tend to grow their business into something more meaningful than the typical guy who starts a business because he wants to be his own boss and doesn't want to have anybody tell him what to do.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree with both of those. And I think now there's a couple of management techniques. Everybody knows there's a visionary involved in the entrepreneurial startup. And we also have many stories about how visionaries at some point outlive their administrative usefulness. They don't outlive their usefulness, but they're trying now to manage, and they're not so good at managing as opposed to being visionaries. And so you need what's commonly called today an integrator, a guy to run the business day to day. And I think part of the issue here, and you're right, Ron, it's about command and control. And is the entrepreneurial startup team, is the original, fire plug visionary interested in moving over? And that's scary. And quite often they don't know how to do that because guess what? It's not their skill set. Yeah. So it is an emotional issue, and it's almost a psychological counseling issue to say, look, when you're ready to drink from the water, you can drink from the water. If you're not ready, we'll just look at it. But let's not waste our time until then,
Yeah.
Good point, John.
My experience has been, if you spend $1 on an advisor, you're going to make 10 and or more, many times much more. So if you're not hitting that metric, you can always find another advisor or fire the one you have, because you should be getting value from your advisor.
So Ed, I'm going to come back with you on that. And I don't disagree with that experience. I would suggest to you, I think that's more appropriate to board run larger organizations, and because they're already working with metrics and with analytics, and to some extent their emotions are backed off a little bit. It's like, how competent are you? Can you get the job done? Where are we going? What's our vision and strategy? It's not just a small group or maybe one person. The issue comes in a family business when you have the founder who was the spark plug, and he's like, well, am I done? Am I over with? I don't know that I want a board to run my company. My company.
Well, that's the point that Ray was making, I think, and that is that for those people who want control, they want control. But the issue really is well, did you want to make money?
Yeah.
There are not very many folks like that end up really doing well and having a 50 employee company or bigger. And that's because they just kind of want to do what they want to do. And at some point in time, there are those folks who work forever, and they just like doing what they're doing. But that's really their job. That they're not really, they're just doing what they want to do. But what about the employees? And did you really want to make money, or did you just kind of want to do okay? And I think that's the issue.
It's to be truthful, it's for them, it's kind of a hobby, and as we know, the statistics are pretty clear. About 80% of those small businesses, 1 to 4 employees, is simply going to close their doors somewhere along the line because they have no way of selling it. They're not sure what to do, and they're just going to walk away. it's really kind of a tragedy because we have so many young people who could probably do the very thing we're talking about, and that is to grow the business.
Mhm.
So what I've also found through my career is that once you have a good business advisor, you never want them to leave. They stay with the company for a long period of time, and they're trusted with the family members, and they make a big contribution. So my point is always give it a try, see if it works. If the chemistry's there and you see value, you keep moving forward. If not, you can always stop the process and try something else. It's not the end of the world.
So I really like the concept that you've got there, Ed, of can transition with different ownership, or as the company morphs or as the entity morphs, some people come off, some people come on. I think a good consultant is actually ideally suited to be a bridge builder. In some point, he's a protagonist. He or she will beg the question and sit neutral. And in other times, they'll be a very good bridge connector. So,
yeah, without a bridge, you're not very effective, are you?
no.
I've sort of been that bridge with a couple of clients over the years. One particular client, I am the longest employee that they have ever had. And so I've gone through 3 sets of family members, 6 individuals, and worked there longer than any of them have, including any of their employees.
Wow.
That's a
Well,
perfect
that's a
example
testament
that
to-
they would not want to lose Ron Burgess.
Well, that's
Right?
fortunate. It's fortunate for me, and I just love the company as if it was my own. And
Well, part of it is your axe to grind isn't really a personal one. You want the company to survive and do well for the community. I would even say it's triple net value. You're looking for value for the stock, you're looking for value for the employee team, and you're looking for value for the community and what it serves. It's
Well said.
True. Yeah, you're exactly right. And there's just a legacy for all 3 of those groups that we want to protect. Not that it'll always be mine to help protect, but I feel confident that, and obviously at my age, I'm not going to be there many more years, but it's very fulfilling to know that you've had a little bit of a part, not having to do the heavy lifting, but at least in terms of sort of guiding the ship just a little bit. And it's really nice to know that there's going to be a company that is over several humps, and it's going to be here in 50 years. It'll be here another 50 years, and that's a nice feeling. Yeah.
So what services do outside providers do for a family-run business? And I started off here by saying, well, they offer an unbiased, independent perspective of the company. They come in and they kind of ask the tough questions, the questions that nobody wants to talk about when you're in the company, that could be really valuable for making the company more profitable. They provide an independent perspective, and it's all about experience. Experience matters. So it's experience on running companies, it's business experience, like being a marketing expert or an IT expert. Those types of deep experiences are really valuable in a company. So, sometimes you need a couple people as an independent advisor, so that you're getting a wide perspective of their experience. So you're not only just looking at marketing, but you might be looking at IT and financing, the financial part of the business as well. So that's important. I think it helps improve the decision-making process. I think outside advisors require more facts, less biases, and less emotion. Prioritizing opportunities is really, really important. We all know you can't do everything at once. And unfortunately, a lot of people think they can, and basically nothing gets done. So having an outside party helping you prioritize your opportunities, and usually the compass is some type of return on investment. that adds to the bottom line. And we talked about the importance of family dynamics. It's a different situation. It's not like working for a public company. You have to make sure that you got the whole family involved, and you're hearing all their different perspectives, and you're moving forward with a deep respect for the family, and bringing in your ideas and trying to sell it to them so that they understand why it's important.
On the family dynamics one, I think for me, it comes back to a fundamental difference between ownership and position. And quite often there are multiple family members who are co-owners or inheritors of the family business, but some of them do not play any degree of active role, and some do. And so how to separate the positional authority that happens to the ownership value. And from my perspective, having worked with several family business, that's the critical factor. Once an owner realizes that they do not have the right to go and dictate day-to-day tactics and policy just because they're an owner, park in the number one spot and take over the conference room and tell everybody what to do. That's not the role. There's positional authority that needs to be adhered to.
Yeah, that's why I think it's important to, break it into three pieces. We've talked about this before, but you've got owners who get the right to profits. Then you've got a board of directors that really is going to direct the company and tell the president what the key issues are going to be, and so maybe major strategies and that. And then you've got employees, and it's possible to be on one or all three of those things. And each one of those positions has a different set of rules that need to be adhered to. And until a family gets that through their collective minds, you're not going to be able to solve that problem.
No, we see it all the time, don't we? And it's really kind of a basic point you start with when you're starting to advise families, that there are differences of responsibilities for those three different groups. A good advisor will improve teamwork and resolve disputes. It'll help everybody get on the same page with full transparency. That's important. And as Ray has always indicated, and is one of his big strengths, is improving communication from the frontline workers to ownership. And that always doesn't go as well as everybody thinks it does. Right, Ray? I think we lost Ray.
No, I'm sorry. I had myself on mute, but yeah, to me, it's always a challenge to be able to operate the company in such a way that you're getting information from the front line, because they frequently are the only ones that really understand issues that might be important to the long-term success of the business. And typically, either through personality or through other means, they won't say anything because they either don't feel it's their position or they haven't been asked. And so unless you have a core group that's willing to invite them into the conversation, you may be missing important information as you make decisions.
I think advisor can help also hold everybody accountable for what they're saying they're supposed to be doing, and then later on looking at what they did and compare the two and see where we're off. And I think that can add a lot of value for moving forward. It's all about increasing shareholder value, which we've talked about before. And it's also about reducing operating risk. The outside consultant can do that. And it's the best practice, because when you start an ESOP, a company that's owned by employees through a trust, they require outside business advisors to be on the board to help manage the company. So I think that's important, and I think there's a lot of benefits to family-run businesses for doing that. The advisor qualifications, I think that's extremely important when you're interviewing for an advisor. You have to make sure that they're the right advisor for your company. And I think most of all, it's got to be a professional in some manner. with some type of credentials, experience, whatever, references that that'll kind of support that this person's going to add the value you think they're going to add. It should be someone who is forward-looking and strategic. And confidentiality is extremely important. One of the things that a lot of business owners are reluctant to do is to share their financial information. So it's really important that they know that you're going to keep everything about their company confidential. The first that they hear that you're not, you're gone, and it really violates that trust that should be there between the outside advisor and the company. Do you guys agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
You should have experience in running a company. You should have experience as a business advisor at another company or two. Should have a deep knowledge of some part of the business that you could add value to the company about. And, having experience in multiple industries is a big plus. A lot of people are just looking for experience in a particular industry. I think they're missing the big picture, and they're missing out on a lot of opportunities of what other companies and other industries are doing and how that could benefit your company. Experience with M&A and valuation is, as we all know, is important. I think one of the first questions that everybody wants to know when you're running a business is what your company is worth. And you can help them understand what it's worth and how they can make it more valuable. Having experience in working with family-run businesses is important, and having a network of trusted advisors is also helpful, because one advisor can't do it all, doesn't have the experience that you need. You have to bring in others as needed, based upon the challenges you're dealing with. And I like collaboration, sphere of influence. If you have the right sphere of influence, you can work with all the different departments and managers and owners, you can really help make everyone better.
Mhm.
And that's really important, is making everybody else more effective in doing their jobs and understanding what they're supposed to be doing to add value to the company.
I was
What do you
gonna-
guys think about this?
I think you're doing well, and I think I just wanted to add that up above and has experience working with family-run business, you got aligning ownership versus operational tasks. And I think that's one of the critical things that I believe that consultants can do, so that you do get this communication going back and forth in a meaningful way. And people are, in fact, providing data and information that's valuable to the growth and the continued succession of the business.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I also think that this is like most things in business, that 80% or 90% of the work that is done is pretty normative and repeatable and scalable. But out of the 10 or 15% that's not, you really need some expertise to come in. And when you need that expertise, that can be night and day difference. If you need some forensic accounting work done, that's typically not something that the day-to-day bookkeeper or EA or accountant will be able to do. And you can get a team in there to do that will be very sharp and to the point. I had one consulting opportunity that I was heavily involved with, that the family dynamics were so intricately wound, with divorce and people not seeing each other and not visiting family on Thanksgiving. I mean, it was some tight stuff that we ended up getting in a psychological counselor, very experienced individual, and put everybody through individual treatment plans, and then put the whole group through. And boy, I tell you what, it was night and day, because they learnt a new set of rules. How do we play in business together? And it was the business would have collapsed without that.
Well, I think that's why a lot of family businesses do collapse, is because they really have not reached outside of themselves, or maybe their CPA or their attorney, who are simply not they're not built to handle those kinds of issues. And that's why bringing in people like that can many times be very, very key. Yeah.
Well,
And I'd like
Ron,
to add, let me also add too that I think that this is a very good list, and you've covered it, pretty well, Ed. But I would add to this, I think something that we all know, but just to say it out loud, and that is that when you bring somebody in to do other than a project, you need somebody that has the personality to be able to deal with different personalities and deal with, say, broad family issues. Not that they're going to be an expert in everything. They're going to be recommending perhaps, say, this person to come in and help for psychological reasons or team building or whatever it might be. But this is why part of the problem that small business people have is selecting appropriate counselors, helpers, advisors from outside that are actually good at what they do. Anybody can call themselves a consultant, and it's so pervasive now that the word consultant is almost like a dirty word. It's like, oh, you couldn't find a job, now you're a consultant. And so I think it's important for whoever is looking for these people to find people that have really done this and really have, real recommendations that can be brought forward. And all consultants who've done this do have a network of recommendations. And so that's really how you verify. You want all these things you said, but you also want to have this set of personalities and a verification from other small business people that this might be the right consultant for you.
I think the one thing you really got to be careful of is you deal with someone who can do everything or claims they can do everything.
yeah.
Those are not the right consultants, because you have to know what you're good at and what you're not so good at. And you have to bring in the people that are necessary to give that type of advice, rather than you trying to do something for the first time, which is really not a good, successful formula for success. That's for sure. So I like your points, Ray and Ron, on that. I think that's very important, to make sure you're getting more of a team impact rather than just one person who claims to be an expert on everything. And I think some of the normal trusted advisors at times want to protect their trusted advisor status, that sometimes are reluctant to bring in others, and they try to do it themselves. And I don't think the client is getting the full value of what they're expecting.
I was going to say, one of the things that I've observed, there's an organization out in our small business environment. Those are businesses under $10 million. And it's done more damage to consultants than anything that I can really think about. But basically, they have a call center in Chicago that's about the size of a football field, in which they simply make these calls and then, get an appointment with somebody, and they take people and they send them out to our small business environments and literally strip about $40,000 worth of cash out of the business in a matter of a month or so, and provide them with this binder that says, okay, here's what we recommend, and then leave. And that's the damage that's done to consultants, because basically, as we've already pointed out, that booklet on the shelf never comes down again, and the owner is now left with a bitter taste because everything that he spent money on doesn't seem to make any difference in his business.
Yeah, that's the risk, no doubt about it. I always come back to this question: well, why aren't all family businesses using an outside advisor? And I keep scratching my head trying to figure it out. And here's some of the ideas I think that may be a problem. First of all, we all talked about a business owner really is so busy, has no time to look at outside of the business on opportunities. They're just more focused on day to day. That might be part of it. Maybe they're not exactly sure how to find one. I would imagine that's not an easy task to find the right consultant, because you're always worried in making a decision you're going to find the wrong one. And what damage is that gonna cause to your company if you bring in the wrong person? I always think it starts with a relationship, and if the value's there, you continue it. And if you don't see the value there, you try another alternative. I don't see it as a big risk. And I think a lot of times they think they're getting this service. Ron brought this up from their CPA, financial advisors, and attorneys. Well, in reality, most of those services are based upon the past information. They're not looking forward. And so I don't think that's what we're talking about. And plus, very few attorneys, CPAs, financial advisors have any type of experience in running a company. And that's really important if you want to bring somebody in to help you run your company. They don't have experience doing it, they're not really going to help you. I think they're concerned about the cost. They don't look at the long-term gains. I think it's pretty easy to show them the gains as you get involved with the corporation and help the family move forward. I think they will find a lot of value in that. And like I said before, once you spend a couple of years with them, they probably won't want you to leave. A lot of times they don't trust people. They don't want to bring somebody in. They don't want to share their financial information. One of the advantages I have is I'm a CPA. I'm licensed by the state of California. And if people show me their financial information, I could lose my license if I shared any of that information with somebody else. So there is built-in trust when you deal with certain certifications that are licensed in the state. And sometimes I guess they're not interested in other opinions. I think that was mentioned earlier in an earlier slide by just about all of us. They have all the answers, not interested in anybody else's opinion. And one of the things I think is really detrimental bringing an advisor in is that sometimes your management team are really treating this advisor as a risk, as a threat to them. You're coming in and you're giving them give the family advice that might be totally different than what they're getting from their employees.
Yeah, let me add to that. It's a threat to not only, say, the top, or not necessarily the president, but maybe other people one or two levels down. But it's also a threat to the management level. If you've got several managers underneath your executive office, and they can undermine folks because they don't feel as though a particular individual is, say, qualified to review their particular position or their particular performance, et cetera. And therefore they begin to, get with their bosses and say, gee, why did you hire that jerk, et cetera. So, I mean, that certainly can happen. And that comes back into, it's awfully important for the successful entrepreneurs have to have personalities that can deal with that, because they have to become and felt trusted by top management and middle management as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. But unfortunately, when you're first getting to know the people in the company, or if let's say you're giving a presentation to be an outside advisor to a company, you have no relationship with anybody in the room. And I have found situations where certain people on the team just don't want to, they're going to try like crazy to inform the business owners that this person can't help them.
Oh yeah, that's always going to be a problem for the consultant.
Yes.
Which is why the presentation and personality is so key. It's not just about expertise, in other words.
Right. That's a good point, Ron. It's like you have to have the ability to be able to relate to people at all levels, or else, you're going to find yourself facing some difficulties.
Right, and therefore it helps to find consultants who've sort of been there, done that. It helps to You know, when somebody has actually, say, worked on a manufacturing floor and they're now an advisor to some level, that's a lot more credible to the person on the floor, to the production manager than it is if you've never done anything like that. And so a lot of, I think, good advisors come from a place where they have that experience, not only, you know, the sort of cookie cutter MBA who works for a CPA firm all their lives, but somebody who's actually been on the floor, actually managed people, actually knows a little bit about different personalities. And that's really a key. But I guess on the other hand, it's like, well, no problem. If those consultants can't get it to happen, fine. They're just not right for that company. And so
Right.
you try and find a match, because none of us could really work for any company. It takes a certain kind of company for a certain kind of personality and need.
Yeah, I do believe, Ron, you're right, that the experience matters. And it's really hard to be a business advisor to a company and advising them on something you haven't done before.
Right.
And I think it's a disservice to the client to do that.
Well, and I think there's another side to that, and that we've all run into, and that is the guy who says, well, what do you know about my business? You've never been in this business. And I think the role that we play is different than understanding how to make widget A, B, or C. It's about how to manage and run a business, and particularly with the expertise in which we might be coming in with.
Yeah, I think that's always true. And I've said this before, you guys all know this, but a particular individual that several of us know said to me exactly that when I had several meetings, and, you know, he was the president owner of the company, and came in and he said, how in the world do you think you know my business better than I do? Well, the answer is, I don't know your business better than you do, but I know every other business better than you do, because you've spent no time in any other business in your entire career.
Yeah, very good.
Well, he had nothing to say about that, because it is absolutely true. You bring in an advisor not because they know everything about your business, but because they know a lot more about all the other businesses than any individual business owner ever has.
Right.
Most business owners have worked for themselves and maybe a boss, and maybe a bigger company before that. That's their experience. They have a very narrow view of the business world. That's what a good consultant has to bring. And that's why you hire somebody who has that experience, because they've got a very broad understanding of really what goes into a lot of successful businesses, not just one.
Yes.
We're getting to the end of the presentation here. The last part here is I'd like to talk about the benefits of hiring a business advisor. And if you get the right business advisor, they're going to work on the 8 drivers that we preach in just about every one of our other sessions, which are shown here. And all of these drivers, these 8 drivers, are going to add value to your company. So I close in this little example here, where a company has a valuation of $2 million. Why wouldn't you bring somebody in to come up with a plan that could increase the valuation of your company from 2 million to 8 million to generate a 400% increase? I mean, to me, this should be the selling point of bringing somebody in to at least explore what kind of opportunities exist in your company that you're not aware of. And the biggest problem, I think, in any company is not knowing what you don't know. And by not knowing those things, it's taking away profitability from your company and valuation of your company. And in this example here, we're talking about over 5 years, doubling revenue, increasing the profit margin by 100%. And from 10% to 20%, and improving the sales multiple by 25%. And by doing all that in a plan, this is a realistic goal of something that could happen by bringing in somebody from the outside of your company. That not going to just look at one project, but it's going to look at the overall productivity of your whole company. So with that in mind, that's pretty much the end of the presentation, folks.
Very good.
That's all, folks.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. That's all, folks.
There you
Yeah.
go.
But yeah, that was well done. Thank you, Ed.
Any other comments in closing?
Just when you look at this, it's the unknown unknowns that really come out of the woodwork in a lot of these things. Typically, people wait, or a company waits until there's an issue, there's an itchy spot, there's something that's going on. They bring a consultant in to solve that issue. And in my experience, it's been typically sales numbers or better cash flow or something along the names of, we need more business. Can you help us get more business? And underneath that hood, when you open it up, you can look at efficiencies, you can look at changing times, you can look at shifting job responsibilities, and there are several other things that perhaps the company has not looked at, but they could look at to actually tighten the ship as it is, and then address the major issue. So it is sadly out of desperation that most companies search help. And so it's a reactive mode. I would suggest, as you've mentioned, Ed, that it should really be a proactive move. And then what actually happens out of it is your vision for the future extends. I kind of view it like on a sailing metaphor. You're sailing in the harbor and there's a fog that's out there 300 feet. And you're not really sure of where you're going, but it's good. You've got a good team. Everything's right. But, let's get up to speed and go. And your vision is still a little short. And if you could turn on the radar, if you could turn on, what's going on around us, what the waves are doing, what the wind is doing, what is happening around us, then we can actually plot a course and plan a course for success and efficiency. And everybody actually does their job better and easier. And you kind of, to some extent, sit back for the longer haul, which is going to be more profitable and more fun. I don't know why people wouldn't do it, because proactive thinking ultimately ends in higher efficiency and saving money. It's not
to mention not running into the iceberg. Because
I'm glad you mentioned that. Or running into the lighthouse that you thought was a ship.
Yeah.
There's a couple of stories about that. Move to the left. Move port. No, you move port. I'm big.
Yeah.
Well, suit yourself, but I'm a lighthouse. And so those things do happen. And we are actually at a time in business technology. We're at a time that not only have we gone global in the last couple of years, but then we've got huge political forces going on in that environment. And the technology that we used to be able to connect with our customers and with our suppliers and our team has just, it's gone through exponential growth.
Yeah.
And now we're sitting with the ability of AI. One of the scariest things that I found about AI is not its ability to write, but its ability to duplicate the human voice. And one of those issues is, I know Ron Burgess from his voice and Ray from his voice. There's a possibility that going into the future, our voices can be emulated and chosen. And so, how do we deal with some of those things?
Well, none of us would have to show up then. I know we're gonna have AI with our voice do these programs.
So there's a lot of reason to get consultants on board, because I think, it used to be just let me stick to my knitting and let me do what I do. Well, and I'm going to do that in isolation. We are not in isolation. We're not in Kansas anymore, folks. There's a change time. The steam engine, steam power changed industry, and the current move in technology is changing everything we've known for the last 40 years.
Yeah,
well, absolutely. And I thought your metaphor of the sailboat was an appropriate one, because I think there's an awful lot to be said for all the different roles that can be played on a sailing boat, which are similar to a good business.
That was a giant tanker that he was talking about.
Yes.
because a tanker doesn't want to move, but a sailing boat's always tacking, so they just might miss the lighthouse.
I believe that the tanker was extremely big, and it's like, no, you move. I'm bigger than you are.
Yeah,
And the response was, I'm the USS whatever it is lighthouse. It's like,
yeah,
oh, okay.
oh, yeah, yeah.
John, you weren't referring to the Titanic, were you?
No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't. There's a very noted story of, and actually, I'm not sure it was a tanker. I think it was almost a US frigate or a destroyer pulling his weight and not wanting to budge. And then whoever it was came back and said, well, I'm Rocky, you're not.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you, guys. Again, it's always a
gentlemen.
pleasure to have these meetings. And with that, I think we'll bid adieu until our next episode. Thanks again, all of you, for whatever contributions we've all been able to make. So.
See ya.